Good morning. Lesson 7 on page 6 of the Psaltic method, which you can download online at patriarchalpsaltophiles.org. And today we're going to do some theory about scale. We've been learning about the Byzantine music scale or klimaka that looks pretty much like that. Okay, that's the one that we have been learning so far. And it goes the gavu ga di ke zo ke di. Okay, a couple of theoretical notes today. So we know that we have the notes vu, ga, di, ke, zo, otherwise known as phthongi. And on the left-hand side of the scale, we have the martyries. And we said that the martyries have two parts, the top, which is a letter, and the bottom. And the top part that shows you the letter basically tells you the name of the note that you are on. Zeta for zo, kappa for ke, delta for the, gamma for ga, and vita for vu. The bottom part, we said that it shows you how the musical intervals, how the tones go up or below that particular note. For example, the martyria of Vu that we've been using so far, and you are going to see a lot of that martyria in this book and in many other music scores for Byzantine music, tells you that you are on note D, and this bottom part tells you that if you want to go from the one tone up, you're going to be using a 7. And then if you want to go from ke, one tone up, this bottom part of the martyria of ke tells you that one up is 12 and one below is 7. So that is, in a nutshell, what these martyrias mean. Today we're going to learn some names of the different intervals. Again, between any two consecutive notes, we have a space denoted here by a box. And in Byzantine music, we have tones, which are denoted by the number 12. And those are tones just like in Western music, in any musical instrument like a guitar or a saxophone or clarinet or a piano. That is going to be a whole tone. And if 12 denotes a whole tone difference between any note and the consecutive one, then it makes sense that half of that, 6, is going to be half a tone. For example, this number 7 is not exactly 6, but is very close to 6. Okay? The big whole tone in Byzantine music, we call it meson tonos, whole tone, meson. Actually, the word meson means large. So meson tonos means whole tone. Okay? And when you see the number 7, we are going to call that elachistos tonos, elachistos tonos, which basically translated means the least tone, the least tone. Don't let that fool you, because later we are going to learn about tones that they have less than 7 in value, but that's just a name for the tone. Elachistos tonos. There is another kind of tone, another kind of interval that we do not see here. It has 9. of these numbers, and we call it elason tonos or minor tone. So from now on, we may be using tones like whole tone, minor tone, least tone, and what we are going to be meaning is those actual intervals. I understand that sometimes the word tone might be confusing because later we're going to learn about hijos or modes or tones. Those are names that they're used interchangeably. Hijos, mode, tone. And because I don't want you to be confusing this tone, that means an interval between two notes, and the other kind of tone that some people are using to mean one of the 8 hijos, most of the time I'm going to be using the word hijos for tones, or maybe mode, and sometimes I may say first or second tone, and when I say it like that, you're going to know that I mean the other tones, but most of the time I'm going to use the word hijos or mode so we don't have any confusions. Okay, so we have whole notes, we have minor notes, and we have least notes. Two more things. Note how from vous to thee we have a 7 and a 12, or in other words, we have an elachistos or a least and a whole or a meson tonos. Elachistos, meson. Elachistos, meson. And if we continued up, it would be elachistos, meson. Elachistos, meson. Okay? In other words, you see that you have a third, or in other words, two tones, two intervals, which in Greek, because it's two, we call it the phonia, two, the phonia, dio phones, or two tones. In English, we say a third because we take the number of notes instead of the number of tones. Okay. In other words, let me make that a little bit clearer. As you can see, vu, ga, di are 3 notes that they enclose 2 intervals. In English, we go by the number of notes and we say third because it's 3 notes. In Greek, we go by the number of tones that they are enclosed by those names of the notes, and we say diphonia. Same thing, just different kind of terminology. And because those diphonias or those thirds repeat themselves all the way up and all the way down the same, we say that they are similar thirds. So this particular scale, we say that odevi, or it goes, following the phonia omia, or in other words, it goes up and down the scale in similar thirds. Okay. And the last thing I want to say for this lesson is the following. Do not pay too much attention to the numbers. In other words, you see 7 instead of 6. And I kept saying so far, it's kind of like a half tone. It's not really a 6, which is half of 12, but it's a 7. Don't pay too much attention. Don't get hung up with that minute differences in numbers. Of course, the 12, it's always going to be a meson tone, and the rest of the tones are minors or least 9s or 7s. They do have their meanings, but when it comes to performing these notes, one or even 2 of these units of numbers, which by the way we called moria or molecules in the translation doesn't really make much difference. So I think it's a better practice if we say meson donos instead of saying 12 all the time, or least tone instead of saying 7. Because when you say that number, your mind goes to an arithmetic way of thinking about things. And those numbers are kind of approximate. You should not get hung up on the actual number and try to think what would a 6 be versus a 7 or versus an 8. Okay, the important thing is that you listen to experienced chanters, preferably chanters that they served in the patriarchal church of St. George in Constantinople. And that's how you know that you are performing the scale in the correct traditional way. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.